So I think that means we can get going. That's a relief. I guess we'll consider it official. I have a lot of unofficial, I don't know, history so far with the group. So I'll take that as a positive start anyway. I do have to maybe beg a little bit. Is anyone interested in taking minutes for this meeting? If no one wants to manage, I could maybe try to type along as we go. But if anyone wants to volunteer, I'll be forever pleased.
Did you say forever? You know,
Forever.
embedded and all that?
Forever
That's
and
a
ever.
pretty good offer.
It would be a huge help. Yeah, it used to be Michael. Michael, of course, after the last meeting, asked to resign and will remain a source of knowledge, but not a active participant in the meetings.
Do you mind if
That's too
Hans
bad.
takes the minutes?
Hans can type. He's welcome.
No, actually, here's what I'll do. I'm prepared to take them down the old way. I could not possibly type and listen at the same time. That's a little bit too much multitasking for an old brain.
If I don't know if you're able.
writing? Can you write and listen?
Yeah, that's what I'm
He's
talking
got it.
about.
If after you write, if you want to even take a picture and send it to me, or whatever your chosen method of technology is after that point, I can make sure it's uploaded to the correct places. So we can make it work if you're willing.
Okay, well, I'll give it a go. I'm just
Perfect.
taking note of the role right now.
And
Thank you,
I'm going to
Dorothy.
suggest we try to share that responsibility over time. I've been in the position of being secretary for years, and it gets to be a burden. So if it can be split over time, it would be a good thing for everybody.
I just want to comment here that you might want to think twice about having physicians write notes. It's like
As long
no
as they can
one-
type it in later.
especially retired physicians whose writing has been completely blasted, even if they were trained by Catholic nuns. I'm just saying.
Oh, I didn't know it was
Terrible
possible to undo
secretaries.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doric.
Thank you, Doric. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Beggars can't be choosers. I'll take anyone at this point, but yeah, that is a good point. Okay, so it sounds like we have, if Doric's on the job for taking attendance, it sounds like roll call, we're checked in. I'm very much not great with Robert's rule. So if anyone wants to make a motion or shout out, feel free. I don't think we have any other ears other than who I see here. So I'm going to be fairly casual with everything. I figure what I'll do, I did distribute an agenda, but there's plenty of room for additional conversation or questions if anyone is curious. I'll share recent milestones and what I understand is the highest priority items for now and then moving forward. And then anyone can feel free to chime in as we go, if that works. Sound good? Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so first things first, I think since we maybe all last spoke as a group, the town's attorneys, I believe that's KP Law maybe, it sounds like they're working with Pioneer Valley Railroad, and the railroad has agreed to stick to the price that was offered in a past letter of an intent from 2018 for the acquisition. Acquisition does not mean ownership, by the way. It's just allowing the town to move forward with the rail banking agreement. And I believe that figure was $340,000 from 2018. That to me was a big sigh of relief, just because every industry, every price these days is just out of this world with all these COVID issues. So the fact that that wasn't on the negotiation table, I think was quite a relief and should help expedite that process a bit. Per Ed Gibson, I think the acquisition process is a 6 to 12 month process. So it's underway. I don't yet have a definite for maybe when that will be complete, though I think that's kind of a good positive thing at the moment. One thing that I think we as a group maybe could consider during that time period is approaching the and I'm not sure exactly how to phrase it, but the request for proposal process, or beginning to illustrate our interest in the design process. Because once we have not ownership, but once we have access via the acquisition and funds in place to move forward, I do think getting a design team or a company in line to get in there and actually start. I believe they're going to be walking the trail and taking notes to get their quotes back to the group and to the town. I'd love to have that sooner rather than later, simply because I don't want to lose time for administrative purposes. And how much the committee is involved in that process, I'm not 100% certain. But it's something that I'd like to have started sooner rather than later. So I'm going to have that on my to-do list. If anyone would like to get involved with writing or researching the RFP process and what the committee can put forward into text to prep to distribute to interested companies, by all means, let me know, and we'll move forward with getting some documentation together there. Yeah, question from Michael.
Mike, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So the design company has been selected for Westfield. And since in a lot of ways, this is going to be a logical connection between Westfield and Southampton, in addition to being hopefully a through connection from the Manhan Rail Trail to the Greenway with the 5 new bridges in Westfield, there's a certain logic to at least consider using the company who's doing the design work for Westfield. Just because I've been anxiously awaiting for this to happen for years and years. In my second job, I'm a bicycle tour guide. I've actually designed out and I have a publicly accessible map with a publicly accessible spreadsheet that explains all the little ins and outs of all the different segments on the map. If there was a lot of times on Zoom meetings, there's a coincident chat feature, which I don't see that it's been activated. And I could put up the link to this map, which includes both Westfield and Southampton, and the associated spreadsheet, so people can take a look at it and see it as a starting point for conversation prior to a official company getting hired.
Yeah, interesting that the chat function is not enabled here. Admittedly, this was offered to me from the town, so I don't know if this is a version that's slimmed down or not. But, however, if you'd like to take my email address, we have a Greenway address. And if you want to send information there, actually,
Okay.
any information you have would be great.
Sure.
Greenway
Can you send that to all the members of the committee?
will do. Greenway at
Yeah.
townofsouthampton.org.
Yeah, so if we, when Michael wants to, when Michael forwards that, if he can forward that link to all of us, that would be great, because then we
Well,
could all look at it.
I'll forward it to the host, who can then pass it back to everybody else. So
Great.
Greenway at Town of Southampton, no hyphens, no underscores.
Correct. All one word, townofsouthampton.org.
Okay, I will do that right now.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Westfield's been great, actually. I have a few contacts there. They've been super helpful. They're very transparent, and they are very much helping push us along and make sure we don't, repeat any mistakes. They want nothing but success from us with the most efficient delivery possible, which is appreciated, and no point in making the same mistakes. They, I believe, are working with Tool, Tolle. I don't know if it's Tool Design or Tool Consultants, but they actually had a presentation open to public view just a few weeks back that I went to, and they had a great engineer. I don't know if she was an engineer or a design consultant, but very detailed, very thorough, and people got to share their concerns. And I think they're also working with whether or not it's someone else or if it's just the state, but I believe the state is involved with the final push on the Westfield side, I should say, from Women's Temperance Park north of the Mass Pike on and off ramp intersection area there, which actually gets very, very close to allowing the gap to be closed between Westfield and Southampton. So I have kind of loosely been considering this to be phase 2, because the phase 1 that Southampton is ultimately focused on now is just the corridor between Coleman Road and Route 10 at the Sheldon's Ice Cream Shop. However, I've been pretty open about my opinion. My opinion is to stray from the rail lines at that intersection and try to head south with the safest, most direct route possible that's separated from the road and safe enough for recreationalists and families and anyone willing to use a path that's separate from the main road, Route 10 itself. which would actually connect to what the state is doing for Westfield. So there's actually quite a lot going on there. And if we can connect the two, I think it'd be an excellent marriage at the end of the day, whenever that may be.
Can I comment? I think the idea of doing homework ahead of time to get what we want in an RFP put together, and I think actually probably the selectmen are going to actually put out the RFP, but we can ask for or give our suggestion what should be in there, and might as well take advantage of Westfield. They may be willing to share what their RFP looked like. That's a good starting point.
Yeah, you guys have a history with that, right? I mean, so the text that's gathered for an RFP or whatever is prepped there, I mean, is that done with committee folks, or is it largely out of our hands? I wasn't actually sure how that was handled.
My guess is they would love our input, but the final one will come from the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Select Board.
I think for when we bid out the phase 1 for the rail line, we got help from PVPC with the RFP.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's an option as well.
Is there a fee with that, or is that out of kindness?
I don't think that there is any fee associated with that, no.
Okay. There is a lot of information on hand. It's probably a pretty heavy lift to do it all, either one person or maybe a group like us who don't specialize in that sort of thing. But we have the feasibility study. We have a series of past documents that I think would be helpful references to include, either to gather data or to include as amendments for things like this. So maybe having that all bundled together towards whether it's PVPC or anyone else who wants to be involved would probably be a helpful start in the right direction. Yeah, so I guess feel free to keep that on the back burner, and I guess I'd like to prioritize it over the next few months to see what can come together, and I'll get answers too as to who ultimately holds some responsibility and where we can share that info.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea reaching out to Westfield to see what they have done, because it's certainly, they've done this in a lot of different stages, so they've probably learned through the process themselves. So if we could get a copy of their latest RFP, it may be, some of their best work that we could pillage a little bit.
Oh yeah. So if that's public knowledge, I mean, yeah, maybe I'll ask for that and see how they went about it. I did have a conversation with someone recently, but not specifically about the administrative generation of that sort of document. I'll ask about it though.
And I'm willing to help with whoever is willing to work on that.
Excellent. I'm writing your name down.
I have done that email. Should be in your inbox.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I just want to bring up the general topic, since there's a big rail network just north of Southampton, and there's a big rail network just south of Southampton. I think it's very important that the big picture be focused on to connect those two networks, to not get digressed and lose track of the fact that there's all this investment already been done north of you and south of you that's part of a big loop that's going to eventually go all the way from Boston to Northampton to New Haven. And once the main artery is complete, then there's lots of room to connect off to it, to connect into neighborhoods, to connect into schools, and to make it a broader community resource. But I think it's pretty important to stay focused on connecting up the main artery so that there is a building on the investments that have already been done north and south.
I 100% agree, and your timing is impeccable, because the next item that I wanted to talk about was an additional Mass Trails grant, and I think they will be prioritizing opportunities to fill gaps or complete or make complete connections between projects already completed, I guess I should say. So the Mass Trails grant, I believe, is a duplicate from what was applied to it was either last year or the year before. Paul was involved with it, and it did result in $100,000 being awarded. So just to summarize, we have two $100,000 grants awarded to the project now. We also have CPA funds that are now able to be applied. Those are the specifics that I don't have specifics on CPA funds that I may try to get from either the select board or Ed to see what the specific numbers are if and when that time comes. And then I think the debt exclusion that the town voted on will be, of course, the the lowest rung that we'll want to hit last to have the least impact on residents, but in that order. But adding an additional grant on top, if awarded, I think would be ideal, and we could potentially use it towards design funds as well. So the Mass Trails grant, you can apply for up to $300,000. So I've been working with the Ad Hoc Grants Committee, I believe they're called, to get some information together. The due date for that application is February 1st. I believe they'll come back with confirmations or denials 150 days later, which gets you to about late summer, which I think is when we heard, maybe this past summer is when we heard about the most recent $100,000 award. So I don't know what will be awarded yet, if anything. Of course, we're seeking 300,000. It may be a portion, it may be all of it, but again, that would be another big piece towards getting this portion done. And of course, we're going to stress that we are a critical piece in completing the gap between Easthampton and Westfield.
Excuse me, do you know
Yes.
is that only for acquisition, like of a new piece, or would it actually provide funds for completing the trail and the part that we've hopefully will have acquired access to?
It does have some flexibility. So I think the phrasing is for acquisition, design, or permitting. I think it basically excludes construction. So those are all key pieces that are still up in the air for us. Acquisition is underway, but potentially not completely covered by grant funds. So if whatever we have for steps A, B, and C before we get to, E, F, G, if we can cover all those with grant funds, I think we can continue to do that with whatever may be awarded, as well as working our way into the design costs.
So just as a priority for this committee, we want to focus on not necessarily acquiring a new piece between Route 10 and Westfield for this money. We're talking about completing what the part north of Route 10. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I think the reason being is I don't really know how we take the second step without showing some significant progress on the first. Maybe if we have a commitment, we have a construction team in place, and the only thing left to do is physically put the shovels in the ground and build the path. I think we maybe don't worry on that phase 2 section just yet. Especially, I think all of these grants will have deadlines as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thank
we're
you for
prioritizing.
clarifying.
Yeah. Yep. So the first 3.5 mile corridors, I guess, got to be the focus now. That second phase is always up for debate, and I know different folks have different ideas on how it should be prioritized. But we're a small town, a small committee, and biting off more than we can chew may actually be counterproductive at the moment, I think. So that being said, that's another opportunity if anyone would like to be involved. I'm kind of gathering documentation and going back and forth with the ad hoc grants folks. Luckily, a lot of that work will be pretty consistent between the grant that Paul helped to put together and submit for acquisition, so we can reuse information while stressing new points that we've made progress, and now we're looking to apply additional funds towards design and permitting. So it shouldn't be such a heavy lift to get this application in, but with the holidays and everything, it gives us a fairly short window, 2 months or so between now and when we have it finalized and ready to submit. So if anyone feels like they're interested, let me know. We'll get to work on that too.
I am willing to do that. I've written grants for the town that we've gotten
Perfect.
before. So
Yeah, Mark and
Okay.
Mark and I can work on that.
I can.
at one point, if you could get me the contact person for the ad hoc grants committee,
Okay.
that would be helpful. Thank you. Or get all of us.
I'll write up an email after this and at least give a summary as to what I know, what kind of documentation I've had access to, and maybe what we can do next.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help out too, even if it's like a review of the final grant, just to make sure it's, everything's there.
Yeah, that's
Perfect.
definitely in your expertise. Thanks, Dan.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to attend as much as I have. I have another meeting to get to. I hope this is going to be a successful mission to get connected between Manhattan Rail Trail and Westfield, Temperance Park.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you,
Thank you.
Michael.
Hey, nice
Okay.
to meet you. Bye.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Okay, and then the last item, that's kind of a higher priority item for me at the moment, is a presentation that has to be offered to the select board. So this came about as a notification from Ed Gibson. I guess this is an annual thing, or if it's not, I haven't really heard otherwise. I haven't really seen much of what was done in the past, if anything, but the select board is looking for a written submission as well as about a 15-minute presentation, kind of summarizing what the committee's been up to. I wonder if I can share. Yeah, maybe I'll share. Just a minute. Let me pull up a document, and this will show exactly what we're doing here. All right, so just real quick, if you can see my email here, this is just a little list of high priority items that will be shown in the presentation. Making sure I don't have anything I shouldn't share on my screen, actually. So anyway, so just a summary of the project, details of funding, which we have a pretty good list of with grants, and then the recent progress with CPA funds, et cetera. Plans for the next 6 months. I hope to have a little bit more information from Ed in the near future with, status of what the attorneys have, or the town lawyers have accomplished, and what to expect soon. And then moving forward with grant applications and, other details. And one thing, I don't know if anyone has experience with this. I have a little bit, and I may try to kind of muck my way through it, but I'd really like to have a detailed schedule, something along the lines of like a Microsoft project, almost like a bar graph with some actual dates where we can see a start and finish of when things should be done. So like the RFP process for design, for example, if we know about how long it may take and when we need it completed by, when should we be starting that? When should we have things ready to submit? It'd be great to see this in place. Ultimately, I want to try to prioritize staying on track for taking advantage of the state's construction funds. I believe we're on the tip sheet. I think that's the official state. I forget what it's called, but the list of priorities that the state wants to apply for major construction projects like this. I think we're on tap for FY24. So as long as we don't lose, any big zeros or some significant construction funds in the lead up to that due to lack of preparation, then I think we'd be in good shape for seeing things really come together within the next couple of years, which I think would be massive. So that was just kind of an idea. And if anyone has experience with it or would like to also, maybe work on that in the background, I think that would be a really helpful tool, not only for presenting to the select board, but just for knowing what our priority should be at any given point in time. If so, feel free to let me know. If not, I'll maybe try to have a loose sketch of that and present it again to the committee in a little while. But again, yeah, so you've seen the outline. That's one other item. If anyone would like to offer some text or put together some ideas to put into one final document to submit to the select board, that's also up for grabs. And I'll be having something ready to submit within the next month or so for a January presentation. Oh, I think maybe I didn't say it. I think the presentation is January 11th, 2022. I don't know the exact date or time because apparently that meeting is not scheduled yet with the select board. That will be coming to me hopefully soon, either from Ed or from a select board member. And I don't know if it's during the day, during business hours, or later on. So more to learn on that. Otherwise, if anyone has any ideas, suggestions for new business, thoughts, etc.
I have one other question. This is out of ignorance because I haven't been involved. The process of communicating with the public about what's going on and not losing control over that, but not ignoring that. I don't know what people who've been on the committee longer thoughts on how we should handle that, or we'll at least need to keep that as an ongoing agenda item because I think it's going to be important in the communication process.
I agree. I've always felt like there was a gap in communication, and I can't say that out of experience because I also haven't been on the committee long enough maybe to know better on this. But for everyone who is interested in progress but is not involved in the committee, they really don't know. There's no good way to get updates. And then, of course, we know that turns into rumors and you go down a black hole of what you think and what maybe someone knows. I'd rather have some solid resource where there's, brief, concise facts of where the project is and things like that. And that really opens up tons of opportunities. But I think our limiting factor is costs. I don't know if there's a way to do it inexpensively or free, or if it's worth investing money into some sort of platform for a website. The free option is of course Facebook. Anyone can make a Facebook page and post the occasional news updates, but that's where public comment and public people can just be willing to share their thoughts regardless of whether it's helpful or not, and that could be a pro or a con depending on how you see it. Or we could take on newsletters, any other platform as well.
Is there a method for posting updates on the town's website?
It would be sending it to Ed, as far as I know. Yeah, so that was his suggestion last time. That's fine. I would really prefer to have a committee member have hands-on to something, just because I think you're going to have, with one less middleman, for lack of a better word, you just have quick control. You can post information as you get it. It's just simpler and easier. But at the moment, Ed said he's willing to take updates and add to the Greenway section of the town site for FAQs, news updates, videos, links, etc. So that's also an option.
Yeah, I know years ago there was a friends group that was established for the Greenway, but I would guess that's probably all but dissolved by now. It's been a number of years.
Yeah, I'd guess the same thing. However, I think I have a couple names. A few names have been offered up to me of folks who were on it in the past, and I'm happy to reach out to them to do any number of things. Ask for interest or ask for guidance or direction on what they think might be helpful or how they managed it. They did have either a site or a Facebook page or something that was separate from committee actions, I believe.
Right.
One additional piece that I personally am very interested and curious about is a 501c3 that I thought was opened by the Friends of the Committee group, Friends of the Greenway group. Reason being is because so many surrounding communities, towns around us, will actually have a page where their information is, as well as a donate button. So if anyone feels like giving at any time of the year, you can click on a donate button and commit any dollar amount, which I think would be great for us to have. But you have to have the 501c3 established before making the connection between site and town bank account. So I think that would be great. I haven't committed time to it. And I don't know. I've asked, I think, Ed a few times, and I don't know the status of a 501c3.
Well, it's interesting. This is a lot of, there's a lot of opportunity here. And I think there's not enough time in tonight's meeting to explore that. But what we don't want to have is redundancy of work. So I think we should take, for example, the work that's being done to present to the select board is probably information that would be of interest to people in Westfield, people in Easthampton, people who are interested in the Greenway. And, maybe we should, I don't know what, put it on the agenda for the next meeting about, who is going to reach out and contact which different groups and what can we do about that? Because I do think that that's going to be a very important piece in moving it forward. Maybe not right now in the middle of the winter, but next year. We are going to need to have a little more momentum if it's going to get through the next few stages of, the voting in the town and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you are correct. And I'm sure Easthampton would like to make the connection. Westfield is very interested, and I have a few contacts there. One is Dan Call. He's on the board of directors for the Westfield Greenway or Columbia Rail Trail group, I believe. Very proactive, super friendly, and really helpful as well. He put me in touch with, her name's Christy Banish, and she has an organization that she has now grouped Southampton into, because we got approval from Ed Gibson. We are included in another Northeast regional group, and I could pull up the name if need be. But luckily, even though we don't have an official maybe title, like we don't, Columbia, Columbia River Trail, is an official title for Westfield maybe, but luckily we've been grouped in, so that kind of creates this network of neighbors and surrounding communities that also want to see Southampton make progress sooner rather than later. So these are the types of things that, if anyone wants to be, kind of running communications or getting in touch with our neighbors, you're right. The results from what we present to the select board could very much be made, more publicly available, and people would see that there's a pulse on the project itself. And it's kind of just been, word of mouth up to this point without any official resource for information. So I think all of these ideas are great, and anything that we could do to, solidify something is worth considering and maybe bringing up to the town administrators.
So maybe before the next meeting, if you can actually write down that list of all the people in that network, and then at the next meeting, we could actually, have a person or people assigned to reaching out to those folks, and maybe a list of the issues that we should be addressing with them, for financial support or community support or whatever else. That would be a good kind of winter project before the summer season.
Will do. I'll add that to my list.
I'm just looking online, and there is a Friends of Southampton Greenway Facebook page established.
Does it look
So
fun?
there should be like one of us that's like, totally engaged with that group, right?
And I think years ago, we had a liaison because we had to separate the Greenway Committee from the Friends group. I don't think you could be a member of both. Is that right, Doric? Because I think you were
The way that works is that once a Friends group is established, it is entirely separate from any kind of a town entity, which means you don't even have to be a U.S. citizen to belong to that one. So no, there's no problem in having your feet in both ponds.
Yeah, I think having a liaison or liaisons, that's a great thing for people on the committee to do, right? And then we can be reporting back, when we have our meetings to update.
Hi.
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 Hi, I'm Christy Banish, actually, from Friends of the Southwick Rail Trail.
Two N's in that?
Yep. And actually, like Aaron said, so we had started and we're in the process of creating the New Haven, we have the New Haven and Northampton Canal Greenway, which will be the whole 81 miles. So you guys are part of that.
My apologies for not remembering the name, but nice to put a face to the name finally. Nice to kind of meet you electronically, Christy.
I don't know if I can help, but I've been doing with this Southwick for 10 years. Well, it'll be 11 now when we opened ours. And Dan Call actually was on the board. He was in Southwick at that point. He lived and he moved back to Westfield. So he's been around a long time. Yeah, that's a lot. So definitely, and Carmel Steiger is the head chair for Westfield for the Columbia Greenway right now, the Friends group, I should say. If you reach out to Hampton, they're great. They've been around for a really long time, and they are actually kind of what you are describing. Their Friends group and their committee for the town is, I don't know if not everybody's on the town board or whatever, but they run their groups, they run their meetings together, actually. So when they just had their annual, it's partly like the town committee or commission, and then they break it off into the Friends of the Manhan Rail Trail. That's how they run theirs. If you want to sit in on theirs, Wendy Hammerly, I think she's been around a very long time as well as Liz Sturgeon and Steve Donnelly from Easthampton. They're wealth of knowledge. They've been around a long time.
Yeah, they've been very good. They seem very organized too. And I think all of their contact information is up. It's easy to find, the Friends page. You can go through the Westfield Town page and they're pretty quick to respond, I found. So they've been a great resource up to now.
Yeah. Because I'm a very small group. We're very small. We're not as organized, I would say, and as active. We kind of have the trail, and ours is just maintenance. And we work very close with our Park and Rec Commission. So we kind of like an adjunct. We say, how can we help? What little funds we have? We have a guy. Oddly enough, two of our guys are from Connecticut because rail line, and they one of them helps the Park and Rec person. He does a lot of trail maintenance. He rides it, and he alerts when the trail needs tree removal, brush tree trim removal, help a trash bin emptying, damage if he sees out there. So it's good to have someone out there when you do get it up and running to kind of like who's kind of the eyes and ears of the trail that helps. I know who's going to be the kind of in charge. Are you guys this committee, or is Park and Rec going to be?
I was actually just about to ask you that question. I was going to ask, as far as maintenance costs, do you know if a rail trail or bike or pathway maintenance and branch clearing, trimming, things like that, does that fall under a Park and Rec budget, or this is something that hasn't really been addressed yet? I don't know that we have or what the park budget looks like really in town, to be honest.
Yeah, I would say maybe now you guys can do the research and see what works best for you. Through the whole town from Connect up, some it goes through Park and Rec, and some is their DPW. It's great when you have a great teamwork together, because sometimes when they don't and they're like, well, that's our budget and that's my budget. And we found that in Southwick because DPW has sometimes we need heavy duty work done, and the Park and Rec budget isn't really set for that, and they don't have the tools. So that's definitely something to think about. Because like this past year, we've had a lot of tree removal. And so it's really, we've had to ask DPW, but they don't, they're like, our funds are limited. They're focused on the streets, and, this is a linear park, which falls on a Park and Rec. So it's just trying to find that those are definitely things to think about. And we, luckily our guy, we're always like, well, we'll donate funds if we have like the friends, if we just need to do it quick, and one of the guys was able to have the neighbor who was able to come out and do the work when a lot of the trees were down and the tree people like DPW, everyone was busy on the streets. So definitely something to think about. Maybe I could see from Southwick End how much the cost is. It'd be good to, maybe equivalent, like I think Easthampton, you guys are about the same size, a little smaller than Easthampton. You might be
smaller. Yeah.
Smaller.
We're like maybe 10,000, so you might be more our size.
Yeah, we're 6,000 plus.
Yeah, you're even smaller, yeah. So just trying to figure out, and do your DPW and Park and Rec work well, chat, maybe finding those things out, when we're working out those things. It's good to know, work on.
Yeah, that will be good to know. And then do you happen to know, I guess I haven't really looked at Southwick specifically for this option, but do you know if there is a fundraising option, like a donation button? I guess what I'm curious of is if it exists, and if it leads to a couple dollars, maybe a couple $100 in a year or so, does that go towards signage or anything specific, or can it also go towards the maintenance, things like that?
Yep, we are a nonprofit, so we had to start a 501c3 when they opened up the trail. The lady who initiated it, we met and we opted not to be a committee of the town and just to be a friends group. It was just a little easier, like not as a formal official, like with the meetings and voting. I mean, we still have the the formality of we had to write a 501c3. You could definitely look at ours if you want to look at it, but I'm not as highly involved with all the other groups, trying to get more involved. I did see that there was at some point you guys did have, and they had like a rodeo for kids or something like that back X amount. So if you could find those people, maybe they must have something in writing. And they are the ones who can do, as a nonprofit, they can do donations and whatnot. I'm not sure how the town would do it. I don't know if anybody who does it through the town. All of us, all the way through from Connecticut on up to Northampton, are 501c3s that are part of the New Haven and Northampton Canal Greenway Alliance.
Good to know. Okay, thank you.
And if you look at nhnCG.org, that's and that will pull up all the websites for all the nonprofits.
Could you repeat that website?
nhnCG.org. So that's New
So-
Haven, Northampton Canal Greenway. And that was Norm, he's part of the Connecticut groups, but he's great. He's created the whole website, and you can link into everything from, as a page, tells the percentage of mileage it's done, all the trails, the different sections. It has all the nonprofits linked websites and maps. So you can it's a nice, easy way to pull up all the info for the whole 81 miles from all the different sections.
Yeah,
And we
that
have
was
an
the,
active calendar too. So we're trying next year to really get, people, if they have events and things, or even if you want to post your meetings, you want more people to attend, we can put them on the calendar.
So
Okay.
I got that site wrong. Could you repeat the site again? Because it didn't show up when I looked.
All right, www.nhncg.org.
Okay, I'll
Should
try
pop
that.
up.
Okay.
NCG.
yeah, that was the acronym that I had forgotten earlier. My apologies for getting it. But yeah, that's so it's the acronym for New Haven, Northampton, Canal Greenway
Mhm.
.org. Yeah, so it actually, and huge that Southampton's involved in that too, because I feel like there's other either casual conversations or emails or newsletters where Southampton's not included. We don't really have a solid website. There's not much to reference, so I feel like we've kind of been out of the loop and don't even appear that there's a pulse. So nice to kind of be looped in there. We got Ed's approval for that too, and yeah, we can only go up from here.
Yeah, and people are excited. I mean, you'll definitely have the support of all the, from Connecticut on up. They are eager and excited to hear, because they have Plainville and has a lot of work, but moving forward, they've got some engineering design and stuff already in the works, and Southington's trying to finish up their end soon, I think 2024.
Awesome.
And New Haven's actively working and digging up the tunnel part in the downtown. So yeah, there's going to be definitely, you need the support. You definitely could get it from the groups if you need it in some way, or you want information. I know we reached out to, when we started, from Farmington Valley Trail Association, they gave us a grant just to start up monies to apply for the 501c3. And we paid them back, and they weren't really worried about it, but it was nice to have. And they had people that came in and talked and kind of talked us through questions we had. So definitely take advantage of your neighbors. Like I said, I think the Manhattan would be a great resource. Those guys have been running for a very long time, and they're the same people that have been on the board for a very long time, or committees, and some of them work in the town for the town. I think Wendy Hamberly does, even more so than Westfield, who's great. I know Carmel and all them, but Carmel's just started and joined on maybe 2-3 years ago. Dan Call's not very knowledgeable. Like I said, he's been on and off the board. So I'll let you guys talk. Sorry to keep pulled you up, but
No, that was very helpful. Thank you. I even mentioned your name too. I'm glad that you popped on, actually. So you're always welcome.
yeah, wish you guys luck, and definitely feel to reach out or send us info or questions. You can do that, and we can, even if it's not we can relay it to, I guess, whoever could be helpful to you.
Excellent.
If I can go back to one of our specific questions that we were talking about earlier, we were talking about putting sort of at least a draft RFP for the planning part of the. Do you know anyone who's already put together a similar document?
For proposal for
Request
developing.
for proposal for the design. Excuse me, I used some wrong terms. The design is the.
Do you have an engineer person in town who does that? Mark, who's retiring in Westfield, but he's very knowledgeable for that. Reach out to Carms, and she can probably, their engineer who works for the town. I would think so that's a request for the design.
Yeah, a request proposal
Yep.
for outside person to help us with the design process.
Yep. I would say, forward to Colonel Steiger, I can ask her. And also Wayne Fiden, who is the Northampton, I'll look and see. I think he does a lot of grants and things. I can't remember his exact title from Northampton. He
How do you
seems
spell
really,
his last name?
Wayne Fiden? I'd have to, I don't even know. I'd have to go through my emails and see.
If you could just share that with Aaron, that would be great.
I
Yeah.
can look it up too. Yeah, I might have. I might have that somewhere.
F-E-Y or
You probably did.
F-E-I-D-E-N?
He's some title in Northampton. He works
Okay.
for the town of Northampton, and I think he helps with grants. And he seems very, if he doesn't do it, he knows someone who does. Like I said, I'm more of a part of the nonprofit, so we came in and all that work was done. They definitely can tell you some people that know it. And Craig Della Penna is a wealth of knowledge in regards to, he's the one who does the Mass Central Rail Trail, and he's done a lot of work through the years, I think for 25 years or something, or maybe even more in rail trail, trying to get it up and going and then getting it, I think you guys are up and getting things started. But he sat in on the Westfield one in the DOT. I think they had their talk about how to connect to you guys on the other end.
Yeah.
So I would say Wayne, or I'll reach out to Carmel and see if their engineer, who's done a lot. I think he's done all the sections through the whole entire part of Westfield. Knows.
Oh, okay.
He
Yeah,
should. I'm sure he does.
We have a little bit of history because I think we have RFPs for the feasibility study and some past work as well. And I think there's a Dropbox folder somewhere of past documentation. So maybe if I start with that and then ping some of these other folks as well as folks in town to know, who can loosely define what we're aiming for, then I can loop in some other folks and have a point to head to.
Yeah, because was it Michael Bueller who was your kind of person before you stepped in? I would think, does he know? I always thought you guys had a blueprint already for up till the ice cream shop there in my mind, but I thought maybe I just assumed that there was the design proposal, and I guess maybe it was just to purchase it, and you didn't get
just a feasibility
I
study.
think it was just a purchase.
Oh, it's a feasibility.
And we have some significant engineering issues with a couple of bridges. So,
Okay.
And we can contact Mike Bueller,
Yeah.
he will fill in gaps because he's stepping up from the committee, but
Yeah.
it's a resource.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Well, Wayne and the engineer from Westfield, we'll send it to Aaron, and they can probably give you some suggestions. You can take it from there.
Perfect. I'll start to get in touch.
Okay.
Great.
Good luck.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was great. That was a lot of info. Any other thoughts, suggestions, new business?
So are we going to pick a time for the next meeting or?
Good question. There was a little bit more time that passed than I had hoped, of course. I think I was hoping to meet in September. I can't say that was an official meeting. So does anyone have a strong urge to make these more frequent, whether it's monthly, bi-monthly, or just as needed?
I think they should be at least bi-monthly. When is the next select board meeting? We're talking about a presentation for the select board in January.
I believe select board meets twice a month.
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah, so those are much more frequent, and I think they're during the day on Tuesdays during business hours. So I actually don't attend many of those working, but yeah, if you think it's wise to meet again before presenting, that's a possibility.
Would you like that? Would you think that would be helpful, or?
I'm not sure. I sort of I don't have a ton of quantity together just yet. So I've got to get started, I guess. It might be good. I guess we can't just exchange emails as a group. So we've got to talk it out and make it publicly available as to what we're doing. I don't know. My apologies. I'm sort of rambling. I guess what I got to do is just get these priorities in text form, and then make something in presentation form to kind of go with it to talk to those points.
Well, I think it's helpful to look. I'm sorry, but I think it's helpful to look at that list of things that they wanted to be presented to the select board, and then see. Some of this was like a report on maybe what the progress was like applying for the grant, a report on the new members, or something like that. And if there's any action that's going to be taken between now and that presentation, I think it would be really good for whoever it is that's going to present to get an update from, any of the rest of us who are doing things, so that you can, when you show up and talk to them, it looks like there are things that are happening. So I think it's very important to give this feeling of momentum.
Yeah, good point. Go ahead,
And
Mark.
we have talked about putting a grant in by February 1st. So
Yeah.
I think we should have a draft and then input from everybody
Yeah.
into
So-
that, or at least whatever we can put together, and then input from the group.
So the documentation has to be submitted a week before, or the week before, I should say, the select board meeting, because the agenda has to be set in advance. So that gives us, everything has to be done the first week of January, I believe. So that kind of interrupts holidays too. If everyone's staying local or is open to meeting again, and around the holidays, whether it's the last week of December, or early January, 3rd, 4th maybe, then that's the time that we'd have to start to gather information and then update any points later on. If everyone's okay with that, then
So
I'm okay with that.
Just because I'm really concrete, if we're aiming for, say, like the second meeting, the second select board meeting, which is the 4th week in the month, right? Then whatever we're going to present has to be submitted to them by the 3rd week in January, right? That means that we should gather somehow the second week in January and just give a progress report on where we are with the grant writing and maybe any increased networking, and whatever else. I mean, there's a little bit of a membership shift, and I don't know what else we would be talking about, reaching out to the friends, and right. So we're talking
Yeah.
about the meeting the second week in.
I think it would be the
January.
first. It's a little tricky because, so I received it on paper. I can show, well, I have it here, but it came in the mail, and all I was given for a date was meeting 1 January. So since the select board meets twice each month, I looked for when meeting 1 was, and it's not yet posted. So that's when I had to go to Ed to see if he could confirm time and date. And he said it's actually not scheduled, but if they're following the consistent schedule that they have been, he believes it will be January 11th. And he says everything needs to be submitted by the Wednesday prior to that meeting, which is technically January 5th, correct?
But that's the first meeting of the month, right?
Yeah, that's what we're scheduled for. It's not our
if we're-
choice. That's what we're given.
If we're talking about actually have the town submitting a grant, they need time to process it. So I'm going to suggest that we meet on the 4th, which is a Tuesday, January 4th.
Okay.
And
That
then
works
we
for
can
me.
give you a little bit input if you need it for the presentation and anything to be in writing, and at least see where we are with the other stuff. And if we
Okay.
can again, if we're going to get the town to submit a grant, it actually takes a while. So it's, the early, I think we should try to meet early January and then just help them push it along.
Okay.
Is it possible that we could be scheduled to meet before the select board on January 25th?
Do you mean our committee meet or reschedule with when we're presenting to the select board?
Reschedule before we're presenting to the select board.
It's not up to me. We can request. I'm not sure that it's necessary. I mean, like I said,
Okay.
I haven't really had much of a chance to start text. However, I'm happy to share what I start as I go. I don't so much mind presenting in early January. I'd almost rather
Okay,
do it and get over with, really.
okay.
I think we want to, if we want to help the town get a grant in by February 1st.
Yeah, I mean,
The earlier the better.
that's kind of
Yeah.
the more important piece, if you ask me. Shift
Yeah.
gears and focus
Yeah.
on the funding as much as possible.
That's a good point. It's going to be a little bit of a push during the holiday. Really, you got to figure that at least a week is going to drop out of December.
Right. Yeah, it's tricky. And I kind of
Right.
knew that would be a little bit of lost time as well. I'll have a little bit of time at home around the holidays, but I have kids, they ruin everything.
We're retired, so
Oh,
we
they
actually have
don't
a little
ruin
more
everything. They
flexibility.
do ruin everything. They do. Okay, so we gotta light a little fire here, Mark, with the grant writing.
How about, I guess if nothing else to start, what I can do is I can share this document that I received so you can see the outline of priorities or outline of priorities to present to the select board. And then if anybody wants to either take a chunk or have a discussion, we can start to gather some data and info in the background. And I'll be doing the same. I'll just kind of put all these priorities and accomplishments kind of into text form, and we'll start to get something together. And then I'll send out an invite to meet again on January 4th, maybe a similar time, maybe 6:30 in the afternoon.
That's good.
And then see what everyone says, and we'll go from there.
And anything you have about the Mass Trails grant or contacts from the town, just if you could forward that would be helpful.
Mhm.
Will do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Last chance for any thoughts, anything?
Aaron, if you have the chance to hang on just a couple of extra minutes, because I signed on late, I didn't really get to learn what the affiliation was of Michael Akrep. I gather he's from the Westfield office group.
I don't know, actually. I didn't ask, and I'm not sure, but I think since this is publicly posted, I mean, we could have any number of town residents, neighboring community residents. I guess he was just an interested party, but he did not define his position one way or another.
All right, then. If you're not bothered about it, then neither am I. And
No.
at least in Christy Banish's case, with all the talk about groups, I lost the thread of what her actual affiliation is.
I'll actually tell you with accuracy instead of just guessing, because she has been very helpful.
She's with Southwick.
Yes, maybe with let's see. Yeah, she is with Southwick. Whether or not she's just on the Friends of Southwick group, she said she's not a committee, but she also includes in her email signature NHNCG Alliance Volunteer, and that's again, the acronym is New Haven, Northampton Canal Greenway, NHNCG. NHNCG Alliance Volunteer. So somehow that organization is just going to serve as a network for, sharing information, eventually setting up maps, details of the entire route, features, and just serving as a resource for all kinds of information related to pathways and everything. Which I guess sounds good. Admittedly, I should learn a little bit more about it, but we did get approval to be a part of it, even though we're kind of, early on in that process.
But I think this is a really interesting point that Doric raises, like Mark and I it's our first meeting. Well, not our first, because we were, in the Conan Park gazebo meeting. But when these people pop in and we don't know who they are. So I think it's perfectly appropriate to ask them to introduce themselves and to clarify what their interest is or their relationship or what organizations they're affiliated with, because it's a formal meeting, and like Doric, for example, is supposed to be recording this kind of stuff. I know, right? But I mean, it's also helpful to those of us who are kind of new on the scene, because it's important for us to get to know these people, in our town and the surrounding community who might pop in like this.
Actually, I don't know if we need to record. I actually didn't record because this is publicly available. And
but Doric is taking minutes.
Right.
So there's a record, even if we don't record the meeting.
You know what's interesting is as other committees and groups and everything have a much larger following sometimes because other issues are more hotly contested. I mean, just for example, the school committee is those meetings are very widely attended, whether it's electronic or in person. But there are people who feel strongly one way or another. So you have residents, and generally they need to identify themselves when they're speaking or asking questions or something, but there's a lot more involvement one way or another. I guess we're small potatoes at the moment, but again, we don't really have a resource to advertise or kind of draw people in to voice their thoughts. So that's both an opportunity and maybe a blessing depending on how you look at it. But I kind of assumed it could potentially be a revolving door, so I was more or less initiating the conversation with the committee and letting anyone else chime in if interested, but we definitely could engage them if it's a small enough number.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty small. I mean, I know both Dan and Doric. Mark and I both know Dan and Doric already, which is kind of amazing. Well, it's a small town. It's a small meeting, but I'm hoping that we have more people who pop in like this. I think it's actually really wonderful that, somebody from Westfield and somebody from Southwick kind of popped in and they're interested, they're supporting our efforts. And the flip side of that is that they don't know us either. So, having a moment of introducing ourselves is all the way around is probably a good idea.
Yeah, good point. And if you're interested in kind of seeing the network around us, I can share. Westfield has lots of meetings. They're very proactive and they have a lot going on, especially now with some push from the state to get a little progress headed north towards our neck of the woods. So it's kind of nice to hear.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. It makes it a lot more fun, actually.
Yeah, and people bring up a lot of different points that I wouldn't think of. Generally, I don't agree half the time, but it's still interesting to hear what different residents prioritize.
A lot of areas of expertise. It's just a lot of diversity.
Yeah, so I'll do that too. As I hear about other events and things happening around us, I'll share them, and everyone will feel welcome to be involved, of course.
Yeah.
So, move to adjourn the meeting.
Do we need a motion to do so? I don't know.
I second it.
Okay, perfect.
But I did want to say, Dan, great to see you.
Dan and Doric.
And Doric,
it's wonderful. And Erin. Yeah.
I appreciate everyone attending.
It was a very business-like, productive meeting, I will say.
Oh, good.
Very
much
good.
Appreciated.
Yep.
All right, everyone. If I don't see everyone, happy holidays. Stay safe. Talk soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.